Hi everyone, I'm David Kelly, Executive Director of the eLearning Guild, and I'm joined here today by Julie Dirksen, author of Design for How People Learn. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So we are going to spend a few minutes together playing a game and talking about the session that you did here at DevLearn.
Okay, fantastic.
So for starters, what would you like to play?
I am all about operation, no question.
All right, so let's get it set up. So we're going to talk about the session that you did here at DevLearn, Strategies for Complex Skill Development. And we're going to play a little bit of operation while we do so.
Great.
So tell me a little bit about the session.
Well, one of the things that's been going on is that our strategies in learning and development for handling things like knowledge-based or fairly simple procedural kinds of things is pretty good.
Okay.
We've got a lot of practices around how do we do procedures, and does that count? But when we start to get into kind of complex skill development, there's a bit of kind of forgetting that certain things are really important for skills. So like the question that I use to determine if something really falls into a skill category is it reasonable to think that somebody can be proficient without practice? So for example, if we're playing operation, neither you nor I have practiced since grade school.
Quite some time, yes.
Yeah, and so we're not great at this yet. We'll probably get better as this goes on, or maybe not, because maybe it's not quite enough practice. But so the issue with that is that often we're not building enough practice into our learning environments, and we're not necessarily building the right kinds of practice into our learning environments when we're looking at skill development. I think there's also a real tendency for expectations to be unrealistic about how long it takes to develop a particular skill. So this one we might be able to get better at fairly quickly, although I'm not super optimistic actually. Well, no, wait, I got the wrench almost.
Nice.
But yeah, oof, I'm getting better. But so one of the things that I was encouraging people in the session to do is to make sure that you're always asking your stakeholders or particularly your subject matter experts, how long did it take you to get good at this? What kinds of experiences did you need to have to get good at the thing that you're now good at? And it's interesting because you can really wind up reframing the conversation that way. Okay. They're like, why can't we put this in a 2-day, thing, or like a 4-webinar series or a 3-hour e-learning, or, whatever the thing is. And it's like, oh, well, you just told me it took you 2 years and a lot of hands-on experience to get good at this. Okay. So now let's reset some of those expectations and start thinking about what is that kind of skill and practice, skill development and practice really need to look like.
So what are some of the takeaways that you're hoping people took from your session?
One of the big things that I'm hoping people got from it was some strategies for distinguishing for different kinds of skill situations. So one of the models that we use is something called, I think it's pronounced Cynefin, don't quote me on that, but it's a model by Dave Snowden where he looks at our problem simple, which is where we know exactly what right performance looks like. Are they complicated, where there's probably a right answer, but you learn it through years of experience and exposure to lots of examples? Is it complex, where conditions are changing, so there really isn't a right answer? Mm-hmm. There's only a right answer based on kind of what you're finding out in the circumstances. Or are they chaotic? And what our training needs are very different for each of those domains. Simple is the procedural stuff. We're already pretty good at that. Mm-hmm. Complicated is interesting because a lot of the expertise is gained through a lot of exposure to case examples. And so, as an instructional designer, you can ask yourself, am I providing my learners with enough examples that they can start to do the pattern recognition across multiple examples and start to develop their own expertise? Complex is really much more about an inquiry process, because there isn't a right answer for, say, how much should I charge for this product? That answer is going to change all the time. So you need a method of investigating it with the audience, or doing competitor analysis, or doing value proposition kinds of things. And so you need methods of inquiry rather than like, hey, there's a right answer that the expert can tell you. And then chaotic, that's usually a triage situation. It might be on the ground after the earthquake hits. What do you do in those circumstances? And so a lot of what we're doing in training is teaching you triage procedures, but also giving you enough simulated practice that you can handle the stress of these highly, kind of inflammatory situations, and dealing with kind of enough practice dealing with the stress that you can have the emotional sort of self-regulation when you're operating in really high stress situations.
There's a fascinating amount of depth attached to everything that you just said.
I know.
If you missed what we shared in this session, you don't have to worry. Julie's one of our guild masters. She contributes to eLearning Guild's conferences all the time. Be on the lookout for the next Learning Solutions or DevLearn conference program. You'll likely see her on it as well. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.